I'm Gene Conte, Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Transportation. When Governor Bev Perdue took office in 2009, she heard the public's demand to remove politics from transportation decision-making at NCDOT. She signed an executive order that empowered us to develop a data-driven way to determine which projects to fund. We call it strategic prioritization. This process is the cornerstone of our transportation reform efforts. Since we launched it 3 years ago, NCDOT has become more accountable and more transparent. The process allows citizens to easily see how and why some projects rank higher than others. The Strategic Planning Office of Transportation has led this effort. They've used both hard facts and input from local planning officials to identify, evaluate, score, and publish our state's transportation priorities. I'm proud of the work they've done to help the department better achieve its missions and goals.
The strategic prioritization process was created and developed to help the public better understand how transportation decisions are made and how we can increase the efficiency at NCDOT. In other words, how can you be sure as the public that we're building the best projects in the most cost-effective manner? 3 years ago, there wasn't much knowledge of how transportation decisions were made. What the strategic prioritization process did, what we wanted to do is create a process that is more data-driven, yet also uses input from local officials. In other words, we want data to drive the best projects, yet we also want to know what are the top projects by local officials out there. We work those two things together and combine them into a project score, which tells us then what are the best projects that we want to build in the future. The old way of doing it was essentially unknown because there was the concern that politics was driving the transportation decision-making process, and we wanted to change that perception that was out there. Well, the danger in the old way of not knowing how transportation decision was made is that there was an uncertainty. People didn't know if their project was going to be built. And so now we have a process that is open and that anyone can see how the decisions are being made. The strategic prioritization process, we think, is very innovative. It's unique across the nation. And the reason that we think it's unique is because not only do we allow data to drive the overall scoring of the projects, but also we take this input from local officials. So we're listening to what the public says, we're listening to what they want, we hear their priorities, we're incorporating that into the scoring process, and to our knowledge, there's not another state in this nation that is incorporating both of those things into the scoring process. We hope that this is the way future transportation decisions will be made, not only in North Carolina, but across the country. An example of the success of the prioritization process is that 5 years ago there was an interstate widening project that was not even on the radar screen. It was not even programmed for any funding. But because of the transportation prioritization process, we showed a light on the score of that project, how important it was to reduce congestion, how important it was to increase safety. And by moving it to the top of the list because of the prioritization process, not only did that project get on the radar screen, but that project actually got funded and is now open to traffic within that 5-year period. That's something that would never have happened in the old days.
I've been in the transportation planning business for close to 40 years, and the last 10 years has been as the Executive Director of the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a little over 1 million of the 9.4 million folks that live in North Carolina. The prioritization process that we put in place has changed things dramatically for the better, and I anticipate that it's going to be even more so in the future. It attempts to put the facts on the table so everybody can understand them. What we have is a data-driven process where you can see the numbers and you can see what every project's relative merits are, and then making a fully informed decision about how to prioritize those projects, because they can't all be done. This is a great change that's been implemented, and it's only going to get better over time. I'm very optimistic that we've set off on a path that's going to result in much, much better investments in transportation in our future.
We want people to know what the process is. We want them to know when their projects are going to be done. We want to do that with some amount of certainty and make it easy for people to understand how the process works.